I'm David Deighton. I'm a conceptual artist, abstract artist, and I do a very unusual thing. I go into national parks to meet strangers and discuss about the taboo subject of politics directly with people. And I've never had an argument with people doing this. I actively listen, find what they have to say, record it, express it in different artistic ways, and um, find usually one word that bridges us together. And it works. So far, I'm alive.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, you know, another thing I've found about doing this kind of thing is that people actually like it when they're given an opportunity to be heard, right? Like they're not used to
Mm,
that in most of the time.
that is spot on. Now, I've had people cry because this is the only opportunity they had to express what they had to say politically. Had somebody listen to them because they feel being shut out. They have broken relationships with children, with their children, with family, with friends. They avoid the taboo subject of speaking about politics. It could be any other subject. I've chosen the taboo one of politics, but they come. There's some unusual moments that happen when somebody starts to cry to somebody they don't know, just out there in public.
Interesting.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Well, so David, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, so I think in one of your, if I got it right, one of your installations, you when you talk to strangers, that you have them answer the same three questions. Is that right?
Yes, yes. So initially, I started with my own invented questions, but I found them actually to be what they were polarizing. I had language in there that were trigger words that I didn't even realize. So I had some friends that were professors of linguistics go through this for me, and they came up with their own set of questions that I found dry. And but in the end, I've adopted them over the years, and they worked out really quite well because either left or right or wherever you are, people respond to them. There's no real trigger word in there, and people are able to say what they have to say. Um, yeah, they're general, very general. They're invitations to dialogue about the taboo subject of politics. Mm,
Yeah, I went through that same process. When I was starting the show, and before I even started the show, I started doing what I was kind of calling these man on the street interviews, and these were like on Zoom, so they were remote, but it was a similar kind of experience. And I also had some experts help me kind of try to take some of the partisan language out or triggering language out to try to make these questions as open and nonpartisan as possible. So tell me a little bit about the underlying sort of mechanism. You know, what are you trying to activate with that structure?
what am I trying to act? Oh, well, okay, so I'm coming from an artist perspective. For me, any taboo is could be construed as an obstacle to creativity. So seeing that people aren't speaking about a certain subject, I want to dive into that. I want people to feel free, to have that freedom to be able to express themselves in that subject. So it's disheartening to see elements of society divided because they're unable to speak. They feel constrained about speaking about a certain subject, especially emotionally with others. And it's an important one because to me, it's all about this the foundation of where we're living in a democracy, that we need to be able to have any type of conversation and be able to do it in a civil manner. And so, originally I started online because that's, there's the platform. I did a 1 year project online on exploring disinformation and political polarization. And with a abstract video every day online, was going to do the whole thing. But I got banned by the platform several times for trying to reach out to different groups. Um, I'd reach out to alt-right groups, and then I'd reach out to nurses, and then just anything. And you're not supposed to do that. Apparently, that's what bots do. So I was like a human bot or something like this, and got banned. And reaching who in the end, there was like I had several thousand. My in group of followers were all artists, and I tried to reach to no artists. So I was like, this isn't working. I got to go in person, right? And I'm an anonymous artist. I work under different artist names. I do street art and things like this, never exposed in person. So I found myself having to go in person with my name in and to speak to people directly, and use the format of using three identical. That's my canvas if you want. I use these three identical questions, let people answer them, find one word that we have in common, which is usually an emotion or a reaction that they have. I find that word. It's not a fact or opinion. It's usually they're angry about something, and it's like, you know what? You think I'm that commie or whatever. You know, actually, I am that commie, or I'm that socialist or libtard, or whatever word they use. But I'm angry too. You know, I feel disenfranchised, or I feel frustrated, or whatever it is. And that word, I take that word and use that as our bridging mechanism, um, to start maybe a more meaningful conversation afterwards, to show the humanity to the other, and invite other people to do the same with other strangers. And people do, and then they come back to me and they go, "Oh wow, this is, it's been really transformative." And that's what I go through. I try different methods of doing it. I use the questions on in person, verbally. I use the questions also in artivist books that I drop off in public spaces for people to discover. And maybe I'm in the back looking at what's going on when people discover this instrument that has the questions in it and an invitation to speak to the other. Um, and I also bury time capsules with political messages in it for a future of who knows what to be discovered in hundreds of years from now, and ceramics and things like this that I bury out in the desert. Maybe nobody will find it. Doesn't matter. We'll
I
see.
think eventually people find everything, right?
Yeah, they
Um,
will.
so with that word
Mm,
that folks come up with, how do you think that plays into how visitors process what they're hearing?
right. So, to me, I'm using active listening, using all this. I want people to use all their senses. We're in a time, to me, where we're mostly is visual and acoustic. We're on our devices. We're focused on a very small window, extremely small. There's nothing on the periphery for us. Um, and so, how do we explore those other senses, the ones of touch, smell, and so when people give me this word, and it could be, let's say, it's just the word is evolve or hope or whatever. In another installation, I will ask people, well, what does evolve taste like? What does democracy taste like? And just there, that is those two things that you usually don't put together. I clash them together, and then people, it's not that they shut down, but there's a silence that takes place. They look down, usually left or right, whatever, I don't know, and and they're thinking in another sphere. They're in another room within themselves, and they're seeing how that they're trying to process it, and seeing the word differently in more of another sense. And then all of a sudden, democracy is it's cherry pie, or a rotten apple, or a sour something. And they express this, and they've never thought of those things in that manner. So we'll explore it that I'll explore it that way, or what a word smells like, right? And so they see it in a different manner, and therefore there's not the outrage that's in it. It's they're seeing it conceptually in a different manner, and that's a connection that we take. And of course, it creates a story for them. We're all humans. I met this guy, and he asked me what democracy smelled like, and
Yeah.
that's a weird. And they'll talk to somebody else about it, and they'll have the conversation going. I mean, I just want people to talk to one another, to converse, especially with a stranger, not in their in group, but with somebody that they thought I never would speak to that person. They look like such and such, and when you do, usually you find that they're not entire. You have a lot of commonalities. Maybe not on, as I said, on facts or opinion, but there's other things that you can connect with. And I think we're going to need more and more of this as things move along. And it's just maybe a drop in the ocean, but if we all do it, might have some more effect There's many ways to connect, but that's the one I've chosen to do. That's my activism, if you like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk of kind of this idea of, yeah, I mean, none of it, none of, no single person is going to sort of solve all these problems overnight, but add it all
Mm.
up, and it makes a difference. Um, so, you with all the different types of constituencies or communities or different perspective people coming from different places have you've talked with, is there some repeating patterns that you see pretty regularly about how people sort of engage maybe cognitively or emotionally with this installation?
Right. Yes. And they've always been unexpected. At first, so I go to national parks. So there's a segment of population that goes to those, but I go to the most popular ones. It could be Old Faithful in Yellowstone or the rim of the Grand Canyon at the most busy lookout. I'll be in a free speech area there, and so I have visitors from abroad. I have also many Americans that are not necessarily the hikers or the people that explore national parks. They go see the main sites. They go for the Instagrammable moment. Um, and there we are, and I'm connecting them always to the same questions. And they're not getting any responses from me except I try to be as neutral as possible, to be there, to listen to everything they're saying, trying to find a word that we have in common, not waiting for a rebuttal or something that I can up them on because I disagree with them. I'm just giving them that space. And oh, do I hear so many things. I record the voices, and I have hundreds of interviews in it where I record the voices, and and they're upset about this and they don't like this or whatever, and there's no hope or whatever, and in the end I ask them for one word that encapsulates everything after the three questions, and it often one of them has been hope. Left or right, they have hope for the future. They think things can get better. They have like this. I know I suffer from like this just world fallacy that there is such a thing, but I think a lot of other people do, that we can get to this space, and that's a commonality that I find throughout my encounters, but also that there's a need to express ourselves on the subject. That our society is kind of stamped down on. It's a taboo. What can I say, right? It's something we shouldn't be talking about. But with a stranger, more likely to do so. And just with a bit of practice, maybe we get to that person we're closer to. Maybe that that cousin or coworker or Uncle Bob at Thanksgiving dinner. Um, and so that's been really good for me. Transformative is to see that I came in not knowing really what I was going to find, and after several years, I'm seeing this um, all this need of civility, of being able to talk to others without getting all upset, and people across the board resonate with that. And I've never had anybody get angry with me and tell me to go bugger off, which has always surprised me, especially when I tell them where I'm coming from. You know, I'm that the cited enemy that they were discussing over the mic, but in the end, it's like, okay, you're a person, you're entitled to what you believe in, and I appreciate what you're doing. When people say that, it's like, well, okay, good, yeah. Do you do the same, man? This is good, yeah. And that's been really good for the face-to-face encounters. For the other things, the other projects I do, I don't really know what the outcome is. I just put it out there and see what happens. Occasionally, I meet somebody that has found one of my triptych dialogue books and go, "Oh, you're the guy that made that book. I have it on my coffee table. We've had a conversation with somebody else," and that's validating. Um, but I'm doing a little bit like more of a survival exercise, and seeing that everybody else in this sinking ship is ready to have to keep the thing afloat, and to make it a more sturdy ship for all. That's what I'm aiming at. Mm.
Yeah, and I think
Mm.
I've heard you talk about this idea of sort of a low threat, kind of contact or environment, um, and You talked about it right in the beginning too, a little bit about how I don't remember the exact words, but that, I'm going to do a thing. I'm going to make them talk about the thing nobody wants to talk about, which is, sort of politics, right?
Yeah,
So, and I noticed certainly when I've, had some of these kind of dialogues
yeah,
that when you first say that's going to happen, I mean, right away people sort of bristle a little bit and sort of expect a fight, kind of, anticipating a fight. So, how does your installation sort of get past that and function in this sort of low threat mode?
right. Well, for example, with the questions, I say they're non-confrontational, and the main thing people say was, "How can that be? How can there possibly be a non-confrontational question?" So let's give it a go. Or like Mennonites or something. There's like, well, we don't know religion. We don't talk about politics. And I said, well, tell me about that, because you can answer the questions too from your worldview. And so there's a bit of pushback to get the conversation going, but I exercise using a tool at every time, and we don't always have that at our disposal in order to speak to someone, right? I have a mic if I'm doing an interview. I have an art installation, something for people to interact with or see or experience. There's the book, there's this, there's the time capsule, whatever. There's a thing. But also I'm offering people either a story that they can take as an excuse to speak to someone else, right? It's it's the opportunity to is finding a mechanism to be able to have this conversation with a stranger where it's still socially acceptable, right? And so that's one thing. Uh, and I can provide that because, first of all, I'm in the right location. It's about being in a space where these things can happen. So I've tried it on busy streets in Paris or in New York. Forget it. People are on their way to a place, right? But you go in a park where everybody's chilling out, and you know, everybody wants something from the other. So people are suspicious. It's not the best place either. So a neutral space. Nature is fantastic for having these conversations. I go to the top of a busy hike up on top of a mountain. I'll go to the peak and I'll stay up there, and I see hundreds of people in a day. They'll go up there, they're taking a picture. I help them take a picture, with the picture, and we have a conversation. And these things, there's so many opportunities to be uh, to be present with the other. And if you have a little bit of spare time, why not use it for that? you know we sign our petitions and this and online forums, and we go to protests or not, or some people just vote and other people just don't, because what's the point of it, they say. Then we can do a lot more than that and constantly be involved and just be a member of community all the time whenever the opportunity arises. And when you don't like it, well, let's go on the different hike, a different walk, and isolate ourselves when we need to, because it is exhausting for sure to be present for others when need be. But those are the two things, right? It's being in a space where that conversation can take place, um, and the others to have the mechanism of your choice in order to do so. Some people like to have dinner parties and have people of different political parties have that conversation around a meal. Great, takes a lot of organization, right? I like the more impromptu whenever it arises. That's your chance. I'm not trying to advocate anything per se because I'm listening. I'm just giving people that space, and hopefully they'll do the same for someone else. Mm. Or maybe it just doesn't work. That's the other thing. But my experience has shown that people are very grateful. They want to know more. They want to do the same. They want to get involved. They want to repeat the experience with others. Yeah, that's my
Yeah,
feedback.
yeah, I've noticed that for sure. I mean, when people are given
Mm,
this opportunity, we kind of mentioned a little bit in the beginning, but
mm.
when people actually kind of get the opportunity to have that space, like they're not used to getting that space, and when they get it, they feel it makes them feel really good afterwards. They do appreciate it and want to do it more.
Yeah, yeah. You're giving them the opportunity to do that, to just do that. That's why people occasionally cry, because ah, it's been a burden for such a long time. I wanted to say what I had to say, to the pain, to express the pain, and just to get it out with a stranger is a release at the same time, and you get some weight off your shoulder and just give it to me. But it's okay. It's not, it's fine because I'm getting a lot also in return from that exchange. Of just, being there and hearing some new things too. It's really brought down my outrage. I mean, how many times was it in the first few years? I was triggered all the time when people were saying this word that I found offensive or something like this, and the structure of their thought. Like, how did you get to this? I want to say something, but I'm not even listening to what they're saying anymore. I'm just processing the onslaught. But with practice, you see patterns, you see the humanity in the other. You learn about new things, about them, where they're coming from, or whatever, and yeah, and that's the fabric of where we are all at, because we're not isolated. Uh, we're not isolated from the other, especially in a democracy. I mean, everybody needs to participate. And as we, I'll tell you about one installation that I really like. Uh, I set up a, a museum stand with a case on the top, plexiglass case in which you put a sculpture or something in, and it's where it shouldn't be, right? It's when I put it at the Grand Canyon in an amphitheater right there at the rim. I mean, what's that doing there? People are going, "What's this?" And I'll put anything in there. I mean, a little sculpture, or I use some plumbing pieces that I put in there, and people look at this going, "What?" And my point of interest is actually not what's in the plexiglass case. It's actually the case itself. So when people ask me what this is, I say, well, inside that's a representation of you or me, right? Of something. But I'm interested in what the case is. To me, that's a representation of our worldview. And we're inside looking out. The world looks huge. It looks like we understand everything, but it's actually much smaller than we think. It's confined. That's our echo chamber. And I'll have another thing. Like I carry around a spice jar. It's made of glass, and I have a little toy inside, and it's a person. And I say, listen, this is also an echo chamber, and it's a lot smaller than this other one that you see in the museum case. How does this person in an echo chamber talk to the other one or enter the other echo chamber, right? Offline, in person. How's that done? And I just stop at that. And then there's a really long silence, right? And how do you answer that one? You're really thinking. And I'm happy with that. Just the person, well, usually we have a conversation afterwards, but they're thinking like, wow, that's amazing. And I speak to many religious people as well. Like, they come in to see it, and I spoke about like Mennonites, for example, and speaking to young people about this, and they're thinking about it as well. The guy with the MAGA cap, anything. It's like how they all get it. It's a very simple thing to get, but the answer, the answer, what is the answer to that? And I'll offer my own. This is what we're doing right now. We're actually entering each other's echo chamber. We've just done it. You've entered mine, I've entered yours. We're exploring each other's cave, if you want, like Plato's cave, right? But I won't say that because that's a bit obscure. But we just explore that and see where that goes. And wow, they got a story to take home with them. And I think it sticks with you all the way. All the encounters we have stick with us for the rest of our life. Um, we might not acknowledge it or not, but there they are, and it changes, it makes us richer. They brought me things, they explained things to me that
Yeah, well,
make
I mean,
me
you
who
you
I am.
mentioned
Yeah.
right. I mean, you mentioned just a little bit ago that in the beginning
Mm.
you might be triggered by somebody using some of this kind of triggering language or this kind of rhetoric, sort of
Now, you
in.
too, no? Does that happen to you? No? Were you triggered at the beginning when you started your interviews, or what?
I can
Mm.
be, yeah, for sure. And I was gonna, so like you were just saying how you've sort of changed through this process, and it sounds like that's one way right there is that now that you know, and I was gonna curious about what do you think brought that change that now it's easier to sort of push through that kind of triggering language now than it was in the beginning for you. What do you think caused that change?
Well, I can only talk about myself
Yeah, yeah.
because I'm not a scientist or anything like this.
Yeah,
I'll leave
yeah,
that to
exactly.
the
So how
studies,
and
right?
you specifically, how did that work for you?
Well, it's a repetition. It's one experience after the other. Um, yeah, I have my goal is to have the experience, to see if there's a way of connection, and in order to get there, was certainly not being separate from the other, but trying to be closer to the other, at least in my presence, right? And being present for the other. And so, therefore, the triggers, after you hear them so many times, this is just like rain. Well, it's like warm rain. It feels okay. You just let it go. All right. I don't. You let the anger is kind of gone, as well.
Do you think there's
Right.
an aspect that you've seen 7 people or whatever use that,
Mm,
maybe a certain trigger word or whatever, and and then but in those earlier instances, you also sort of saw that person in their humanity, more, and so now the next
yeah.
person, when they use that trigger word, you're like, oh yeah, they also are a person I can see as a person beyond that word. Do you think that's part of it too, something like that?
Well, yeah, I guess, it's finding, there's patterns, and I associate myself to certain patterns, or at least my behavior to the patterns I experience. At the beginning, I couldn't do more than like three conversations in a day, but now I'm doing, I don't know, there's something like 50,
And
right?
in one
And
day,
just
50?
yeah, oh
Wow.
yeah, because the conversation, they only last like a minute and a half to 2.5 minutes, uh, and because often the person just has something they need to say, and that's it. I'm not. There's no time for me for an exchange to take place. It's just like you give them the space to say what they have to say, and then that's it, and off they go. And that's fine with me, right? That's a start. Other people that have moved along, they've thought about things, and then they want to say, well, there's so much political polarization going on right now, and I have this personal experience, and they want to share, and so we get into things, and then they might ask a question, and people don't ask questions anymore, right? I'm originally from France. We still, I noticed there that we ask fewer questions than we used to, in person, as part of part of having a conversation. In the U.S., there've been far fewer than that. We brag about who we are and what we do, and la la la, and there's a lot of one-upmanship. It's very competitive. Um, so I realize that, and so therefore, well, at least in my perception of things, and uh, and so I just let people say what they have to say, and that's good enough. And if it goes further, great. Having somebody ask me a question, like I'll ask three non-confrontational political questions. It's very rare they ask me what I think, or ask me those same questions. They take them with them because they have somebody in mind they're going to ask, but it's not necessarily me, and that's okay because I'm just a stranger. What do they care? Right? They're not in that process. They're not in that space yet that they want to do such a thing. They have somebody in mind they're going to use it with, and I'm very happy with that. Right? In the great scheme of things, if we're all united and we're all one, if it's not they, other, we're always we, is like I tend to think, then there's that conversation that's going out over there, out of sight, that's happening to me in some way, trickle down at some point in the society I live in. Right. And that's where I'm coming to, because before it was really not like that. It's like I need to resolve this now. I need to, you know, I've heard things that need to be righted, right? There's things they need to know because they're wrong. Yeah. And that's not this space for it, because otherwise we're just gonna we're just how do you say, bang heads, right? Yeah. It took a while though. It took a while for me to get to that space. And just by practice, for me, it's an artistic practice, but I think, to me, I see everything as every action with intention is an artistic expression. So even a scientist or whatever exploring something, they're doing this, an artistic project of theirs. I see it all through that lens. So to all actions with intention, everybody's doing this big work of art together. Mm.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely would like to introduce you to some of the, I sort of talked about the bridging movement folks, but I think, you know, one thing I think is we need more of this kind of art and storytelling options and things like that because, and if you asked me this, people that know me in my early career and stuff would have said, "What are you even talking about?" Like you would have just said, "We'll just have some, very data driven sort of idea and everything going to move forward that way." But I've come to very much appreciate that these kinds of things. I think, and like I love the story talking about the the box
Hmm.
and the items in there and sort of thinking of that as sort of a metaphor for um, sort of bubbles and this idea of, and the way you use that to get us to sort of break out of our normal thinking in some way and ask these kind of questions like that like in some sense don't make any sense, even like what does democracy smell like or something like that, right?
Right, right,
But
yeah.
but I think we need that kind of thing to break us a little bit out of our comfort zone and make us trigger a different part of our brain that can actually sort of look at this in some new ways and come at it from some new ways. And I think artists are such a huge part of that, and like I said, someone that talked to me from 40 years ago would have been like, "Who is this person that's saying this?" Right? But I've come to really appreciate that. So I think there's some opportunity there, um, and I feel like at some point folks like you can have a lot of influence on folks like me and others that are kind of working in this space. Like, what do you think I could really learn from this, or maybe even other people that are in the bridging movement from your experience? It sounds like you've done a lot of interviews, you talked to a lot of people, and you've got sort of that boots on the ground, but from this different perspective.
Well, when I hear you speaking, to me, you are doing that. You're going outside. You're exploring other echo chambers and bubbles, and you're putting the two together. You're having podcasts, interviews, interactions, thinking from looking from the outside, looking in, trying, exploring from seeing different angles of the whole thing. Um, it's definitely going. Actually, it's always going somewhere where you feel uncomfortable because that's going somewhere you feel triggered. Getting into that space is it's uncomfortable. So go into those spaces and explore them, right? And listen to them and explore them as if you were going to a foreign country and trying new foods every time, because it's a journey. We don't have to go far to explore and to travel. I educate in the schools, and I tell the kids, about all these countries I've been to or whatever, and but also that they could travel within their own neighborhoods. There's somebody on that block that around the corner that they've stigmatized or they've never spoken to. Like talk to that person, find something out about them. uh, I'm the dad that told my daughter, like, don't don't talk to strangers, right? Not don't talk to strangers, talk to them, right? Don't get in the car. Don't get in
Yeah.
the car. But if somebody asks you a question, answer them. Find out. Okay, there's risks involved. Something could happen, but most of us are civil, right? And you can put yourself in very awkward situations for sure, but it's going to be mostly rich, and travel is can happen anywhere. It's within yourself and also in space, right? To go into different places, it's putting yourself out there, and it makes us grow. It can be uncomfortable. It's nice to have a safe place to come back to. That's good, self-preservation. um, but if it's all about echo chambers, right? Let's get out of ours and go explore another cave, right?
Yeah.
See what that looks like. There's a lot to explore. Can I share one
Yeah.
thing, another experiment I'm doing? Um, so I go into the classroom and I always share Plato's allegory of the cave with kids from all different ages in the secondary uh, in the um, in the public school system here where I live, and there's an episode in the story. It's about a prisoner in a cave, and he's questioning the echo chamber, and he only sees illusions, but he's freed, and he makes his way to the exit, and all these things happen. But when the prisoner, which I remind kids is like me or you, or when the prisoner's freed, what happens at that time? And I ask them to get up and do something in the classroom. The classroom's the cave, right? So what do you do inside of the cave and how they explore it? And that's fantastic, you know. Some of them go over to a poster on the side of the wall and they say, "Oh, what are you doing at the poster?" It's like, "I'm deciphering this new language that's on the cave wall that I've never seen because it's a new reality to me." Uh, Other ones hide underneath the table. Well, why are you hiding underneath the table? And they tell me this happens quite a bit. They say, "Well, if everybody is freed for the first time, all at the same time, I'm going to hide while they figure it out because there's a moment of chaos, right? At that time. Um, where would you hide in the cave? Some go towards the exit, some go right back to the wall where the illusions are, right? And that's where they feel most comfortable. And at first I was like, "Oh, that's too bad. Don't you want to go outside?" But in the end, I was like, "No, you can be anywhere in the echo chamber or outside. It's just know where these things are and be comfortable. You got your safe space, you got you have the illusion, you have the exit. Travel within those areas and recognize where you're at every moment of your day if possible, and you're more likely to have these incredible encounters. And that's a great way of exiting echo chambers, is to travel through them and see them as transparent. Mm.
Interesting. So,
Transparent and flexible, right? They have to be, you can go through, right? I don't know what the right word is, that they're fluid, right? Yeah, they're not as rigid as they should be. Mm.
yeah. So if listeners want to interact with an installation, what's the best way to do that? Or can they host an installation? I mean, what action would you
Oh,
give for listeners?
well, they can go. I have a YouTube channel where they just post things chronologically as they happen, kind of a diary. At Triptych Dialogue is the name of it. And so they can just copy any of these and collaborate with me if they want as well. I'm always open to collaborations. Just write something in the comment and we can collaborate on ideas. The books, for example, I invite people to contact me and I'll send them a box of books uh, free of charge. They can use them. They're repurposed books that I use from the recycling bin from libraries, and I rip out pages and stamp the 3 non-confrontational questions in them, and then drop them off in different places or have interactions with others. Um, I don't have a schedule of events where people can come to a national park and just find me, right? I think that would kind of bring out the randomness. There wouldn't be the random factor of it. People have an expectation. I like the impromptu event rather than the scheduled event to happen, um, because it changes the dynamics of the encounter. Um, but yeah, that's one way. Anybody, yeah, contact me if you want. It's all good. Yeah,
Awesome.
just engage with people. It's all about engaging, listening, and finding something in common. Try that out. Yeah, see what happens.
Awesome. That's great. Well, David, thank you so much for making time for our show.
It's a pleasure. This is so good. Mm. Thank you so much to you and your listeners. Mm.
Awesome.